HARK, we are here. It is time for yet another episode of Star Wars Unlimited. This is the post-Christmas episode. Now, we did get a nice batch of previews to be able to go over, but obviously no stream, so there's no stream coverage. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over, in a different segment towards the end, what I like to call the shell of a deck. And I'll explain what that means later on, but we've got some previews to go over. We'll have the shell, and I apologize if I sound different more than I normally do. The primary reason is I've been sick the last few days as of recording. Technically still sick today, but I think I'm on the tail end of it. So we have previews to go over, so let's get started. Our first two previews come by way of the Garbage Rollers, and their whole thing also included an interview with Danny Schaefer, so you should go check that with the link in the description below. But we've got two different units, one of which is a very important unit for Vigilance, and the other is a mostly important unit for Cunning. So let's start with the Vigilance one. We have here Inferno 4, Unforgetting, a 2-cost Vigilance Villainy space unit, 2 power, 3 health, Imperial Vehicle Fighter. When played, when defeated, look at the top 2 cards of your deck. Put any number of them on the bottom of your deck and the rest on the top in any order. This is an uncommon, number 31 out of 252 in SOR. This is exactly what Vigilance was looking for to replace something like Distant Patroller in decks that utilize Vigilance Villainy. Distant Patroller is still going to be useful in other decks, but I imagine Alliance X-Wing, at least for heroism side, will be a better choice. But this right here not only gives you a nice body on the field in space, it's also a TIE Fighter, because TIE Fighters are dope. It gives you a really good effect when played and when defeated. I go back to the well of comparing this game to Magic the Gathering because it's one of the most popular games in the history of card games. And the reason why is because Magic the Gathering realistically informed the design decision for almost every other game that has come after it. There are some differences, some uniquenesses in a lot of games, but when it comes to the basics of playing a card game, Magic the Gathering is pretty much the underlying focus of all of them. So this effect here, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put them back on the top or bottom in any order, is what we would call scry in Magic the Gathering. Scry is a keyword that basically says top card of your deck, look, choose top or bottom. If it's scry 2, look at the top 2, choose any order of top or bottom. In Flesh and Blood, because one of the original cards that had the scry keyword in Magic the Gathering was called Opt, Flesh and Blood calls this effect Opt. I think for templating factors and reduction of text on cards to be able to get things to be understood a lot easier for players coming into the game, this should have been keyworded 100%. This card should say when played / when defeated, Scomp 2. And if you don't know what Scomp is, a Scomp link is the port on a computer that a droid can pop into with its tool and be able to find information and stuff about. It's in universe, it's perfect flavor, it shortens 28 words to 2 and allows for design space to be opened up in the future. Now, sure, they could keyword and errata backwards, but this is something that they should have done immediately. This card should have a lot less text on it than it does, because if you want to put this text on any other card and another effect, you're gonna have to start doing squishes in terms of what is actually going to be on the card space itself. Inferno 4 is a fantastic card. I think this is a 3 of in every Vigilance Villainy deck, because it's a good unit that's going to drop onto the board. It's going to keep your space arena relatively safe for a turn or 2, or less if you go up against an Imperial Interceptor. But it's going to be able to do the damage, but also get you leverage of knowing what the top cards of your deck are, or if they're bad cards and you don't want them, throw them to the bottom. And that is exactly what you want to do to get as much information as possible. So Inferno 4, great card, just needs better templating. Our next card is that Cunning unit I was talking about. We have here a Jawa Scavenger. Props to the Garbage Rollers for changing all 3 of their images to one of the faces of the Jawas on this card. I thought that was pretty cool. It is a 1-cost Cunning ground unit, 2 power, 1 health, Fringe Jawa, Sabator, so it defeats shields if it attacks a unit and it ignores Sentinel. It is a common, number 205 out of 252 in SOR. Step 1, great limited card. Being able to get a 1-drop 2/1 at the common slot that also bypasses Sentinels and defeats shields if you're attacking a shielded unit. Perfect, perfecto. Step 2, if you're trying to play a lower to the ground Cunning deck that is aggressive or aggro, not necessarily aggression, this can help a lot because it does a lot of the things that you want to do, again, with the Saboteur, and you've got 2 power coming off of it. Beyond that, this card is very vulnerable to Vader Leader, because when this comes down and your opponent throws a villainy card out and has enough resources, this thing gets popped off the field without it being able to do anything. So I think in terms of, this is going to be one of those high-end picks in Limited because you want those early drops in Sealed and in Draft. But in terms of playing this in Constructed, I honestly don't see it being run all that often unless we get something later on that mixes with the Fringe keyword itself specifically. They're cool, though. You can see the Sandcrawler in the background. Great art. It's a good card, but I don't think it's good enough for Constructed. Our next card comes by the way of the Brettspeil Podcast. Again, I apologize if I get the name wrong. It's a cool space unit, and it represents a not highly utilized section of the Star Wars eras. We have here the Vanguard Ace. It is a space unit, 2 cost, Cunning, Heroism, 1/1, New Republic vehicle fighter. When played, for each other card you've played this phase, give an experience token to this unit. It is an uncommon, number 191 out of 252 in SOR. Gameplay-wise, you need to play lots of cards before you play this card, so you are playing this in a low to the ground deck if you really want to get its effectiveness. If you have a wedge on the board already, you can ambush this in on a later round, as long as that wedge survives, to be able to do the extra damage with those experience tokens you'll be getting. Combine it with cards like Bamboozle, which are effectively free and do not cost resources so long as you pay the alternate cost, which is discarding another Cunning card. There's a lot of interesting ways you could work this together, but I think most people are saying right now that this is a bad card. I'm not agreeing that it's a bad card. It's just not viable right now because we don't have a significant amount of the setup pieces. I think if this was actually a 2/2, it would even without running the extra experience tokens, it would still be worth running. We're probably going to see more New Republic cards as we move along in the sets because this is, I think, the first New Republic unit we've seen. We've seen Resistance, which is different than New Republic. We've seen Rebel, obviously. So this doesn't mesh with either of those tactics, but it can mesh with vehicle and it can mesh with fighter. For a recap, the Vanguard Squadron is the New Republic squadron that you play as in Star Wars Squadrons, Titan Squadron being the Imperial or Empire Squadron that you play in that game. Fantastic game if you are even moderately okay at flight sim space shooters. Definitely play the story mode of this game because it is excellent. I played it on stream a long time ago, had a lot of fun with it. I'm absolutely terrible at that game, but it was still a very enjoyable story to experience. You get a lot of characters within the Star Wars universe. Realistically, Squadrons was supposed to be like a tie-in to Battlefront 2, but they ended up separating it out as its own separate game, and I think that did wonders for the game itself. But Vanguard represents a period of time between the end of the Battle of Endor and just shortly after the Battle of Jakku, which is only like a 2 or 3 year period. And that's what this is from. So Vanguard Ace is a decent card, not really playable right now, but it will be playable in the future. Our next card comes by way of the Unlimited FFG Twitter account. It is our Heroism Aggression Leader, and it's something that we pretty much assumed was going to be the case. We have here Cassian Andor, dedicated to the Rebellion. Aggression Heroism Leader, he is a rebel. Action, pay 1. Exhaust, if you've dealt 3 or more damage to an enemy base this phase, draw a card. Epic action, if you control 6 or more resources, deploy this leader, 4/6. He is the rare Aggression Heroism Leader, number 13 out of 252 in SOR. On the flip side, we have here Cassian Andor, dedicated to the Rebellion. 6 cost, 4/6 rebel, Sabator. When you deal damage to an enemy base, you may draw a card. Use this ability only once each round. Cassian, much like Sabine, is about throwing as much damage as you possibly can onto the enemy base. Rather than accelerating that base damage like Sabine does, Cassian wants to have the other units deal the base damage so that you can continue drawing cards and continue having your strategy of just hitting the base more and more. The difference between the two is that Sabine's speed and her low to the ground aggression build is she's going to pump out this damage faster and is more about throwing the units at the base as fast as humanly possible. Whereas Cassian kind of plays more mid-range or control even. Because you're getting cards, you're going to have more in-hand resources in order to be able to play more cards down the line. With the caveat of this one requiring you to do 3 or more damage to an enemy base to draw a card, and you have to pay 1 for it. And then this card, where it's if you deal any damage, you draw a card, but only once per round. You're not going to be drawing a lot of cards using Cassian's effect, but any cards is going to be better than no cards. You just have to plan out your turn in order to be able to get this done. So if your first round action is to hit the base for 3 while you're on the leader's side, then you pay the 1 to draw the card. That gives you an option of being able to spread out your plays a little bit in preparation of maybe getting that double card draw turn, where your first action is hitting the base, activating Cassian's leader effect to draw the card, next action deploying Cassian, next action hitting the base with Cassian to get another card. You're going to want to be able to control your opponent's board so that way they can't interrupt you, which is why this leads to being more a mid-range or control deck compared to Sabine, which is just all units, concentrate all fire, and then Superstar Destroy, right? That type of thing. Cassian is a great leader, and I think that there's going to be players that are going to lean, like myself, that are going to lean more towards Sabine because it fits that red deck win style, where Cassian is going to lean more towards players who are like, I want to control the board and I want to control who is dealing the most amount of damage, but I also need the resources to be able to do that, so I'm also building into hitting face a little bit and drawing that card. Cassian's definite major point is if you can do 3 damage a turn, you're getting 3 cards a turn as long as you can pay the resource. 1 card from him and then 2 cards from your draw at the end of the turn. So Cassian is a great leader. I think he's going to see a lot of play. Personally, I'm going to stick with Sabine. I was nervous a little bit about Cassian potentially being a better leader for that deck style. Thankfully, he is not, just also because of his cost. Sabine being 4 cost and Cassian being a 6 cost means that Sabine hopefully has already killed you by the time Cassian would potentially be dropping onto the board. Our next 2 cards come by way of the JediNews website. They got previews from FFG for Star Wars Unlimited, linked to their article down below. And both of these cards are great. I'm very hyped for them. So let's check them out. First, we have here, yes, another Spectre. Zeb Aurelios, Headstrong Warrior. 5 cost, Aggression, Heroism, ground units. 5 power, 5 health, Rebel Spectre. When this unit completes an attack, if the defender was defeated, you may deal 4 damage to a ground unit. It is an uncommon, number 146 out of 252 in SOR. Zeb is in. We are ready to go. We're just basically missing 2 more units for the full Spectre line, Hera and Chopper, which I'm sure we're going to get both. Yes, Hera is a leader, but I'm sure we're going to get a unit version of her as well. Zeb has a very average cost to power health lineup here in terms of how much power and health they have for the cost. Being a Spectre, that means that he will not pay his aspect penalty in Hera decks. And then this card right here, or this effect right here, means that if you're attacking a unit, which you won't be able to do the first turn unless you can give it, the first turn it's deployed, unless you give it ambush, you'll be able to deal 4 damage to another ground unit. So it's him kind of just blasting other thing. And this unit has to complete the attack, so you do not get this on defense. But if you can get the attack out, you can do a lot of damage to your opponent's board by striking something small and then striking a bigger target that's going to be a bigger problem for you later, because the unit does have to survive. There is a strategy for this. If you do want to play Energy Conversion Lab in your deck and you use it on Zeb, I think that's a great use of that, to be able to get that slam into 1 unit, potentially defeat another unit, and then be prepared for future rounds with Zeb if Zeb survives. But I definitely see this as going to be a clear-cut include in the Hera deck. Interestingly enough, this is a 5 cost card. Sabine, I believe, is a 2 cost. Ezra is a 3 cost. Kanan is a 4 cost. So it'll be interesting to see what we get for Hera and what we get for Ghost, the Ghost, which I believe we should see this set, and what we're going to get for Chopper. Chopper could be a 1. He also could be much higher or somewhere in between. I don't know that they're going to stick to having each Spectre be a cost associated with a line like we've seen so far, but it would be interesting if they did. I'm plugging 3 of these into Hera because I like my Spectres. We'll definitely have to see how that shapes out once we get the last couple of ones and what secondary aspect Hera wants to run outside of just command. Great card. Very happy to see it. Our next card is a Snowspeeder, and it's a pretty interesting one at that. This is the Rogue Squadron Skirmisher, a 6 cost command heroism ground unit, 4 power, 6 health, rebel vehicle speeder. It has ambush like the other one. When played, return a unit that costs 2 or less from your discard pile to your hand. It is an uncommon, number 101 out of 252 in SOR. This guy's main goal is to drop in, take something that's 4 health or less off the board, hopefully survive, but then also take something that's 2 cost and put it back into your hand. Unfortunately, it's not like Home 1. You cannot put the unit back onto the board with this effect, but at least you can prepare to utilize that 2 cost card, a unit, from your discard pile at a later date. So if you can combine this with anything else that's 2 costs or less, Battlefield Marine, something like that, maybe an X-Wing for the space stuff that you want to use with command, this is how you're going to be able to get some of those back. Interesting card, but I don't know that this is going to be run as a 3 of in command heroism decks, even if they are vehicle focused. The 4 power is really what's throwing me here. And I understand why, because they don't want the speeders to be too powerful, especially with their ambush effects, but maybe a little bit more power. Anyway, interesting card, interesting design. I like the art, very cool. I also really like Rogue Squadron as a whole. Our last preview is a Christmas gift given to us by Unlimited FFG Twitter account. And this card is very impressive. We have here Darth Vader commanding the First Legion. 7 cost command villainy ground unit, 5 power, 7 health, Force Imperial Sith. It has ambush. When played, search the top 10 cards of your deck for any number of villainy units with combined cost of 3 or less and play each of them for free. It is a legendary number 87 out of 252 and SOR. We're going to start with the disappointment. I wish this was Vigilance or Aggression, so it would go into the cores I will talk about later. As it stands right now, this is actually less a Force card and more an Imperial card. That's the only disappointment. In terms of this card, it is a fantastic card to be able to drop, attack, destroy a unit, and then also be able to get 1 or 2 cards, maybe even 3 if you get lucky, off the top of your deck. There is apparently going to be a rule that will be established in the CRD, Comprehensive Rules document, that anytime you search cards from your deck, multiple cards, if it doesn't specify, they will always go to the bottom of the deck in a random order. You take the top 10, you pick your 1, 3 cost, your 2 cost and a 1 cost, or 3 1 costs, and play those on the field in their various arenas for free, and you get extra advantage based upon that. The other thing is that you do get to choose the when each of these activate, because both of them are when played effects, ambush and the when played effect. You're most likely going to use the ambush first and then when played, unless there's another card that gets bonuses based upon something else making an attack that action. You do get some really cool options. You can bring a super laser technician into play and ram that into something else later or defeat it. Or if you saved the extra resources to be able to pop potential super laser technician with Vader's effect, if Vader is your leader, you can do that. You can bring in a cell block guard for the Sentinel. You can bring in a TIE fighter to be able to attack an opponent's unit later on in space, or an opponent's space from space. You can bring an Inferno 4 to filter your deck a little bit more. All kinds of different things that you will be capable of with this Darth Vader. But the primary goal of Vader is to drop in, delete something that has 5 health or less, and then start attacking your opponent's base thereafter. Very interesting design. It'll be interesting to see if we see anything else similar to this. I did speculate that this art would actually be an event, and I was incorrect. It turns out it is the Darth Vader unit. Still cool. I'm probably still going to buy this mat when it drops out, because I think it is my favorite piece of art of the mats that we've seen so far. But as it stands, Darth Vader commanding the First Legion will crush you with his fist. The next part here is something that I like to do for other games, where I take an idea or a concept and I build a core for it. So that way you know what you're looking at any point in time of trying to build a deck. A lot of Yu-Gi-Oh players actually understand this a lot, because what'll happen is that their core engine for a archetype has like 12 to 15 cards that you put into it, and then the rest of your 40 card deck is one-off out of archetype things that will aid you in continuing your strategy. So the example we're going to go through here with Star Wars Unlimited is Force. Force is a very strong trait. It's an archetype in and of itself. It's on several leaders, and it is also on a large amount of cards. We're going to go over 2 Force cores. We're going to start with Heroism, and then we're going to look at Villainy, because they are different. It doesn't necessarily require Luke Skywalker, but it does require Vigilance in some form or fashion. You probably do want to run Luke, because he himself also has the Force trait, which will benefit from other Force traded items like It Binds All Things and Jedi Lightsaber. But ultimately, the main aspect is Vigilance, and you will need that for a large portion of the Force units that are in here. So if you are running Luke Skywalker, you will generally run 1 Luke's lightsaber, which will help, because you can put it on unit Luke and also leader Luke. You have 3 copies of It Binds All Things. This can heal damage off of your Force units and then deal damage as a result of that, but it's not useless if you don't have Force units on the board. You just only get the heal, you don't get the damage. Yoda is a fantastic card because it's card neutral up to a certain point. You'll play him, and then when he is defeated, you get to draw a card. Jedi Lightsaber, one of the strongest upgrades in the entire game. You get that bonus of being able to reduce the defender's attack and health when attacking. Ezra Bridger, nice little card filtration system for him. Kanan Jarrus, not a huge important piece of the puzzle, but he is Force, he is Jedi, he is Vigilance. He allows you to kind of mill. Your opponent's still getting cards back to their hand, but you are pulling cards off the top of the deck. Obi-Wan Kenobi is a really good defensive unit because he does have the Sentinel, and when defeated, you can put experience tokens on units and then draw a card if it's a Force unit. And then you have Luke Skywalker, who can ultimately kill most units in the game except for the biggest things. Your Heroism Force core is pretty much predominantly will always be It Binds All Things, Jedi Lightsaber, Yoda, and Obi-Wan Kenobi, and then you could add from there. I have Luke here at 2, Kanan at 3, Ezra at 3, just to get more people into play in order to be able to have access to extra Force traits to benefit from It Binds All Things and Jedi Lightsaber. I imagine once we get further along in the game, maybe not necessarily set 2, but definitely set 3, Twilight of the Republic, we're going to see a lot of Force units, and anything that allows you to dive into playing Vigilance is going to be added advantage compared to the other aspects because of Jedi Lightsaber. But that could change if we get other lightsabers that are better. Our next core is the Villainy Force core, and I think right now this one is much stronger than the Heroism one. You will rely almost completely on Vader as your aggression side, which has a lot of the Force applications, and you do want Vigilance because you do get access to It Binds All Things and Count Dooku. But in terms of a core, your core will always be 3 Force Choke, 3 Fifth Brother, 3 Fallen Lightsaber. Putting Fallen Lightsaber on Fifth Brother gives you a unit that is able to defeat mass amount of units on the board at any given time and allows you to trigger the Force Choke for 1. Sure, your opponent's going to draw a card off of that, but you're also wiping units off the board with a very potent combination of characters and cards that basically only cost you resources for 2 rounds. But Vader, being a Force unit himself, on his leader side, he's assisting your strategy of putting damage onto your opponent's units that can then all be cleared off with a Fallen Lightsaber attack. If you are running Vader instead of something like, say, Grand Inquisitor, you can run Vader's lightsaber. I'm sure there will be a Vader unit that will get put into this core at some point in time. Obviously, this was recorded before the finish of the Ultimate set. I will do updates to what I like to call cores or shells for specific strategies later on, probably once we start doing the set reviews. But you do get the Villainy side Force strategy is based on mostly aggression, but It Binds All Things, very good card of healing your things. You can heal your Fifth Brother, you can heal your Palpatine, you can heal your Vader and deal the damage. And then Count Dooku, take down on a stick. You can't beat Dooku's value in what he is capable of doing. But predominantly the package will be these 3. But in total, you have 3 It Binds All Things, 1 Vader's lightsaber, 3 Force Choke, 3 Fifth Brother, 3 Fallen Lightsaber, 3 Count Dooku, and 3 Emperor Palpatine. You can throw an Imperial strategy in here, you can throw a Trooper strategy in here, you can throw a Good Stuff strategy in here, but Villainy Force will end up being focused, like I said, predominantly on these 3. Late game, you'll have your Emperor, your Count Dooku, and your Vader, and if you can stick Vader's lightsaber on Vader himself, that is a very powerful and potent unit that your opponent has to deal with. And it's going to be difficult because if you are running Vigilance, you can knock other things off the board with the Count Dookus, with the takedowns, with the vanquishes, and heal up your own unit with things like Repair. I like the concept of putting together these cores because it gives a basis for deck building that allows people to focus on a small amount of things and then build out from there. That is usually, in my opinion, the best way of building a deck, rather than just being like, here's 50 cards, let me cut down. I would rather take a small group of cards of saying, this is my archetype strategy, what do I build out from here? That's why a lot of times when you see me talking about a deck, a core to it will be a certain amount of things. In the Sabine video, we talked about it. It was Green Squadron A-Wing, Red 3, Fighters for Freedom. Those 3 cards individually were the core of what makes a Sabine deck absolutely insane, because you can just push out damage, push out damage, push out damage, and the support thereafter. You add things like Benthic 2 Tubes or Partisan Insurgent, you add For a Cause I Believe In, those types of things, and it just pushes that deck over and over. So with these 2 cores, you start off with 15 to 20 cards as your basis, and then you build the rest of the deck around what you're missing with those cores. cores. Because Heroism Force is generally a deck that relies on controlling the board, you want more control options. You need some Sentinels that support things that you don't want to be attacked. You want some healing. You want the ability to remove your opponent's units off the board. One thing you will note between these two cores, Vigilance is a key portion of both. You can run the Villainy Force core without Vigilance, but you lose two very strong utility cards in It Binds All Things and Count Dooku, and then eventually Takedown. And you don't really want to lose those. So I imagine Heroism sticks with just Vigilance, might even be Vigilance, but Villainy wants to have Aggression and Vigilance to be able to get all of the Force stuff out and all of the combat tricks that it wants. So I might put out another video of another core down the line, which will be separate from like a deck guide or a deck build, because having a full deck list is much different than having a core that you expand upon per our previous reasoning. And that is all she wrote for us this week. We had fun checking out those previews, including a very special Christmas preview. We had fun talking about the cores or shells of what you would use for a Force deck for both Heroism and Villainy. Had a bunch of other random things as it went through with the previews. So if you like the discussion for what the like built-in or baked-in archetype looks like, I can do more of those. Just let me know down in the comments below what you think you would like to see, or if you liked it or if you didn't like it. It's up to you guys. Thank you very much for joining me this week. The video is a little bit wonkier than normal just because I had to spend a lot of time in times that I don't normally working on the video between being sick and the holidays. It's not a great time to be making videos, but we do it. We're here because we appreciate you out there. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment down below what you think about all the different things that we've done here. Check out another video in my Star Wars Unlimited playlist. All of my stuff is there, including my previous Sabine Cunning deck build. You should check that out. And with that, I will see you in the stars.